Okay, so let's go ahead and give ourselves a title. This is called Simplifying Expressions. And this is what we are going to call the types of problems that we saw in the Super Sloth Club. So when we were solving these, we were trying to get 12 every time. And some of you did an awesome job of solving and getting 12 every time. So we call these types of problems solving expressions. And there is an order that we have to follow when we're thinking about solving. So we're going to record that order down so that we can refer back to it as we put this into our long-term memory as we go through the week. So the first thing that you're going to write down is G. And the G stands for grouping symbols. So this would be our groupings. All right, and there were two kinds of grouping symbols that we're going to see in 5th grade. The first one is one that you saw in the Super Sleuth Club cards. That would be the parentheses. And so the parentheses look like this. Okay, and we always want to solve these first. Okay, so our parentheses are the pieces that we solve first. Sometimes we might see something that looks like this. And these are the bracket symbols. So our brackets are what we're going to solve second. So that's why I'm going to put second. So there's two grouping symbols in 5th grade that we're needing to know. One is called parentheses, the other one is called brackets. Sometimes we will have both, and when we have both in expressions, we will need to always solve parentheses before brackets. The next thing that I'm going to put in my notes is the letter M. And so the letter M stands for multiplicative actions. And in our number talk, we made a T-chart, and we were talking about the input and the output, and that relationship that we were talking about in our number talk was a double relationship or a multiply by 2 relationship. And so anytime we have a multiplication or a division relationship, we're going to call those multiplicative actions. So those are any of our multiplying or dividing actions. Sometimes we're going to see division first in an expression before multiplication, and in that case we would solve divide before multiply. And so you're probably thinking to yourself, how do we know which one to solve? Well, it's very easy. If you have both in an expression, it's always the one that you see first when you read from left to right, just like you're reading a book. So we're going to add that below. If we have both, solve left to right. Start at the beginning and solve left to right. And so we've talked about groupings, we've talked about multiplicative actions, and now we need to add additive actions. So what are additive actions? Well, additive actions are any adding or subtracting action. So if we're solving an expression and we see adding come before subtracting, we would solve adding then subtracting, but sometimes we may see subtraction before adding. So we may have both in our expression. And the same thing that we did with multiplicative actions, we're going to apply to our additive actions, which means if we have both, if we have both, solve left to right. Just like when you read a book. And so our notes are helpful to us as we begin this process, and the more we solve this process and go through it together, the less you're going to need your notes. But since this is new, and this is something that we're going to be doing all this week, it's important to have your notes out and to follow these steps. If you don't follow these steps, more than likely you will not get the right answer and it will be counted wrong. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to solve an expression or two for you. I'm going to go ahead and put that in your notes so you can turn the page. And I'm going to solve a couple from the Super Sleuth Club. So I'm going to go ahead and stop this video and I'm going to record each one of these so that you have some examples to put in your notes, especially if you are absent and you are tuning in from home.